Hello, chefs. Good evening. We're back again. I'm Isaiah, the young Jedi chef, here with the Dragon Warrior chef, German Lamb, and the Phoenix Warrior chef, Noreen. We will be your host for today's podcast. You're listening to a unique podcast where we will discuss tough yet real topics that need to be heard in the industry. In this podcast, you will hear the truth, real, raw, and unfiltered. Today, we have the honor of having Chef Andy with us to talk about the impact and importance of a chef. I'm excited to get started and jump right in. So without further ado, I will let the star of our show, our guest, Chef Andy, introduce himself. Chef Andy.
I'm surrounded by warriors. I'm a bit nervous on this one, Chef Lamb. You didn't warn me about all these dragon phoenixes, but no, it's really good to be here. And what better way to start than saying that the chefs are the warriors? Yeah, they are warriors, you know. So I'm Andy Cuthbert. I'm based in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, from Melbourne in Australia. I'm 61 today, but I've got a T-shirt that says I'm not 61. I'm 21 with 40 years of experience. I've been very lucky to be in the hospitality industry, worked across Australia, the UK, been out in the Middle East for 32 years, and very, very lucky to be a cook, because if I wasn't a cook, I wouldn't have met these warriors this evening.
Well, thank you so much, Chef, for being here, especially on your birthday. It means a lot. And that kind of ties into the topic that we're talking about today, being a chef and having that passion. So behind every chef lies an individual that has a deep passion for creating dishes that leave behind a lifelong memory. Regardless of the reason that drove each one of us to become chefs, we all yearn to see the smile on the faces of our guests that as they indulge in the dishes that we create. Our industry that we are in is truly an art form and can only be mastered by those with the skill, drive, passion for what we do. In order to understand how to appreciate a chef, it is first important to know exactly what a chef is and what they mean to society and the hospitality industry. My belief is that a chef is an individual that could turn simple ingredients into jaw-dropping works of art. So, Chef, I'm gonna ask you, what is your definition of a chef? And what impact do you believe they have on society? You want to start us off with that one?
I think I go back to when I was an apprentice at school in Box Hill College of TAFE in Melbourne, and my lecturer, Bern Uber, told me that we're all cooks. Anyone can be a chef. Because chef in French means head of, yeah? Chef de plonge, head of the dishwashing. So if you want to be a chef, you want to be in charge, call yourself a chef, yeah? So in our hearts, we're cooks, yeah? But as we've seen society change, and as we've seen what our industry has changed into, our industry has become very, very aspirational, yeah? So I think a chef today is regarded much higher than what we may have been 30 years ago or 40 years ago, much higher regarded in some countries than other countries, because in some countries being a cook is just being a cook, and you be a cook because that's all you can do. And I think, but being a chef is to lead and to prepare people for the future. And when you decide that you are a chef, it's when you've decided that you're going to lead people and that you're going to guide people. You're still going to cook. See, we don't chef a steak. I've never seen a good steak chefed. I've seen a good steak cooked. Yeah. And the simple things are what we cook. So a definition of a chef is someone that is passionate, of course, but also passionate for the people that make them able to cook so well, because you can't do everything. You know, pastry and bakery, no way, man. Who wants to sit there measuring? In the hot kitchen, we just go for it, right? You have to have a little bit of science when you make pâtés and terrines, but pastry and bakery, that's an art form beyond just cooking, you know, because it's the science, it's everything. But then in the hot kitchen, working on the pass, working in the pans, this is what used to get me fired up. I used to love it, you know, getting the prep done, just cooking and serving, you know, that's what really drove me. So to be a chef, it's more than just cooking, and it's more than just being in the kitchen. Because I came out of the professional kitchens a number of years ago, but I still have the heart in the kitchen with the young guys and the young girls and the young people that cook and made me what I am today. So it's really to look at a chef being a person that's responsible for those around him and her, but also someone that's going to inspire young people like you two, Isaiah and Noreen, to be in the industry as long as Chef German's been in the industry. He's been in the industry about 70 years, but he just looks young. Yeah. It's done him a world of good. Yeah. But you know what I mean? And I think that's the difference. So you got to have the passion to lead the people. You got to have the passion to cook. Like you said, create the dishes, the artistic work on the plate, make sure it tastes great. Don't forget the salt and pepper. But it's more than just saying I'm a chef. I'm a great cook. I'm a really good cook. But when I'm a chef, I got to be so much more. And yeah, from the industry, who are the poster people of the hospitality industry? It's the chefs, right? They're the ones that really get the accolades. They're the ones that get the Michelin star. But if you haven't got a great sommelier, if you haven't got a great housekeeping person, or if you haven't got a great dishwasher, are you going to get the Michelin star? Are you going to be able to produce the plates that you want to do? Is the guest going to be as happy with just the food and you got a lousy pour of wine? So I think being a chef is to lead everybody, to make sure everyone's fully engaged, but also to inspire people to continue in the industry. And I think that's the hardest bit that we have to learn and understand as we move forward in our industry.
Yeah, I love every point that you touched on, Steph, and like you said, a chef is really a leader and somebody who can
Mm.
lead the team and lead the people to one common goal. And I
Yeah.
believe humbly as chefs, sometimes we forget we're all cooks at heart, really. Like you said, we all started as a cook, started with the passion and the desire to create great dishes. And I feel like chefs in the modern kitchen, at least here in the US, they're not as on the line as much. They're more, just in the office sometimes. They'll, be on the pass, but not really in the line behind the
Yeah, is it
cooking.
clipboards and Excel spreadsheets, or is it actually pots and pans and cooking? And
Exactly.
that's what I used to like as well. And I used to get my guys. I was useless at plating stuff. Yeah, I could dream up the dishes. Oh, that'll go okay, and that'll. But I couldn't plate.
Mm,
I had this really good guy from Nepal who was just a master of plating. So he was the plating warrior.
mm,
I'd cook it. And the other guy from Calcutta, he'd copy me how I was cooking it. So I'd teach him. But the Nepali guy, he would plate for us because I'd plate it
mm,
and it'd look like anyway. And then, but then he would take exactly the same plate of food, exactly the same ingredients, what I cook. So I'd cook and give it to him and say, all right, put it on the plate and it should be this way, that way, whatever. And he would duck, 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 and it'd look really good. So that was also one bit, that I used to love that. It was so
yeah,
much fun. Yeah.
yeah. It's
Do I miss
important.
it? 100%.
Yeah,
100% I miss it.
it's important to recognize the skills of your team, and then put them to
Yeah.
use. It's super important. Noreen, Chef Lam, what's your take on it?
Sure. I love that you first defined it, chef, as a chef as a leader. I think that's how I see a chef as well. And when we talk about impact in society, it's very personal for me because it's why I moved into the food industry. Eventually, I'm very passionate about wellness and nutrition, but also food insecurity and food policy. I think we need to implement a lot of positive changes in our food scene, not just in the United States, but worldwide. And I have a lot of people ask, you did time in healthcare, you have this degree, you went to this college, you're intelligent. Why don't you just get a degree in nutrition? Why don't you just go straight for policy? And I think the experience and the expertise that comes with being a cook and being a chef, really understanding how the food industry works, how team members, like you described, come together to create the vision that has been
Mm.
set out from the beginning, that's extremely valuable. And that's what's missing in a lot of the policy and advocacy space. It's people talking for other people without experiencing what they're working on. They don't really know from their heart. They read about it, but they haven't experienced it. So I think that experience of the chef being there, leading their team, finding the strength in their team members and putting them to use is what's going to
Yeah.
bring that lasting impact that we're looking for, especially post COVID. I think the world has changed in a lot of ways and the food industry has been changing a lot as well. And so it's a very unique position, a chef, especially now. And so I think they can have ultimately the biggest impact on society. socially and politically
As
as
they
well.
say, as they say, food brings the people together around the
It
dining table.
does.
Unite people by food, but also, what's a chef's cook's key role is to serve healthy, safe food,
Mm. Mm.
right? And then
Absolutely.
understand where all your food comes from, and that's an important part as well. That it's not just got to look nice and whatever, but is it safe? Is it nutritious? And all those other bits that are attached on the back that maybe you don't see enough of on television.
Mm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think TV, and I spoke to this to Chef Lamb as well. I think the television, the marketing, the boomer is really good for the industry, but it's got to be also taken with a bit of a grain of salt to
Mm.
say, hang on a minute, is this reality all the time? You have that super show in the States with the cake guys. These guys are mad. I mean, these cakes are just brilliant. And I know it's possible to be done because we've got a band of guys over and girls over here that do it equally as well. Yeah. The Sri Lankan mafia that we take around the world on our competitions, they create outstanding things. Yeah. But I think the down to the bottom line is that we have to create healthy, nutritious and food that is safe because, it's like a doctor, you know. When
Mm,
I go for an operation, I tell the doctor, have you read page 6 of the medical journal? He said, what do you mean? Make sure your patient wakes up after the operation. They have a laugh. I said, now you stick the needle in, mate. But that's responsibility, right? So another
right.
thing, being a chef, it's being responsible. Who for? The life of another, like in healthcare.
Yes,
Can you imagine?
exactly.
What is the worst thing a chef can do? Forget the salt and pepper? No, serve bad food.
Dangerous food.
Not
Right,
bad taste,
right.
dangerous food. Yeah. All that has to be thought about in your advocacy. And there's that great show, Food Fraud. My goodness, have you ever watched that?
Oh,
It just makes you weep.
yes.
What people are doing.
I
Honey,
know.
chickens, sabotaging some poor guy's farm. This is wow.
Yeah,
So
you
many, so many things that are hidden behind what we do, and how many eggs are laid a day to feed 8 billion people? How
Right.
many chickens is that? And then you think about
Hmm.
that. How many turkeys are going to go under the knife in Argentina and Brazil for turkeys, not only in America but over here as well?
Mm,
exactly. And I think as a chef, like you said, you gotta have respect for the food, you know?
Yeah,
Like, yeah, if you don't have, and I think a big part of having respect for the food is doing stuff from the whole process of stuff, not using processed food and doing stuff from whole ingredients because you get to, physically you're part of the process of making the food. And like
yeah.
you said, chefs have a huge part of impact on society, They dictate the health of the people. They, dictate a good experience from a bad experience. Chefs have so much power in this industry. I mean, in
Well,
the
you influence people, right? You can influence people. Yeah.
yeah, and that's
It's the creative people that are making ice lollies with celery juice and watermelon to make sure the kids eat the celery. They disguise it as a watermelon popsicle.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
and the
whole
kid's actually eating celery. He has got no idea. So no, but you have to learn what goes with what. Yeah, so and that's the creativity, and that's when you come out. That's where your passion goes, as creating something. But that goes to nurturing and nourishing the people as well.
exactly. That's what we do as chefs, and that's our
Yeah,
responsibility.
cool.
Chef Lamb, what's your take on that?
Well, you know what? I'm gonna create my philosophy and principle of what a chef is for 24 and 25 and the next generation. I look at it as you're a CEO, you're a president, you're a martial artist, you're an athlete, you're a psychiatrist, you're HR.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything? But you know what?
Scientist.
Oh, scientists. But these are the principles for today's chef to connect with today's generation: professionalism, safety, respect, sanitation, like what Chef Andy said about the core values when you wear the white jacket. Then the other one, the hardest one, I would say, is body, mind, spirit, and food, right? We have chefs that have addiction from, alcohol, drugs, or food addiction, the wrong food, and suddenly, it creates disease. So I look at it in a different angle, right? The angle of food, it's about love. And the only way you get love is it's like suffering. The more mistakes you make, the more things you taste and you go like, what is this shit? You know, now you're gonna go, I can't serve this to a guest, right? Because your team is saying, chef, what is this? What did you make? But then this is where everybody's idea they add to the pot. So in one way, it's like ratatouille. That is my favorite dish because you have all these ingredients, but then how can we come together as one? So for me, these are my vision of what a chef is in today, because now you're teaching your mentees life skills of how to create structure, discipline, and there's guardrails. And that means you're protecting your team from injuries from the kitchen. You could lose a finger, you could slip and fall, you could burn yourself, you could do some serious damage. So for me, it's really once you teach them these are the fundamentals of 101, now they're going to do things like they never have done, because that's what we do as humans, right? We all have a switch. And now as a chef, we activate it and we educate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Noreen touched on something good after COVID. What changed after COVID? Everyone started talking about mental health, right? And the most recent coming out of that is Heston Blumenthal. Heston Blumenthal has come out and discussed why he is the way he is. Yeah, and investigate. Go and search his interview, and you'll see what I mean. And he's come out as, you know, one of the most creative chefs that we've had in the last 20, 25 years. Crazy ideas way out there, but then when you listen to him, how he is, yeah, and what he's gone through and what he's going through still, it's that's another learning curve for the people that lead the people. And you have to start to understand that, you know, because gone are the days of just shouting at the people and moving on.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, it's a whole new industry. It's a whole new world, and you have to approach it a whole different way.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's one of the things you have to adapt as a chef, you know. You can't just go through the same motions every day and think you're going to get the same results, you know. You have to be willing to change, and that's just the nature of the job. So thank you so much.
Willing to change is a good point, because that's a hard one.
It is. You got to be open-minded.
People just
a lot of people are stuck in their ways, the old school ways, but you know, with changing times and changing everything, you have the open mind to different things. Yeah, it's super important, especially in our industry, you know? Yeah. So
you want to encourage people to come in. You don't want to scare them off.
Exactly. You're right. You're right.
Chef's always shouting. I'm not going to go and work for him.
Exactly. Afraid to talk to the chef.
He's a miserable bloke. You know,
you have to be approachable.
All the time.
Exactly. I think that's
Why
one of
would you know?
Yes. Exactly. If you're not approachable as a chef, then your cooks won't want to come to you and talk to you, and you know, it's harder to succeed. And you know, that's super important, I believe. So and as we kind of touched on before, like the biggest difference between a cook and a chef, there is a difference. In a cook is more of the follower and the mentee, and the chef is more of a leader. But I guess we'll kind of touch on it a little bit more. What is the biggest difference, and then how can one get on the road to becoming a chef? You want to start us off with that one, Chef Andy?
Which road to take? I don't know. Some people have memories of cooking apricot pie with their grandmother. I don't.
Yeah.
You know, my mum was a kindergarten teacher and my father was a motor mechanic. So I thought I'd be a motor mechanic. And he said, no, not for you, mate. I said, oh, okay, Dad. So then I used to cook at home just because I was told to. But then I got a job, you know, and I fell into it. You know, it's not something I aspired to be, you know. They wouldn't even take me in the army in Australia because I was a bit of a lump, I guess. Not, you know, not enough of a warrior, maybe. So even the Navy wouldn't take me. No, he'll sink the ship. So, you know, I don't know that the path. I stumbled on the path, maybe, yeah. But I always cooked. You know, I baked cakes for the kids next door. You know, just because I'll make a chocolate cake for that neighbour's kids. You know, birthday or whatever, and she still remembers it. You know, she's 40 or 50 or whatever. She said, oh, you made me a cake once. I said, yeah, I remember. She was 6. I was like 14 or something. So there was that little bit there. My mum was the world's worst housewife. This is how she described herself. She kept the house clean and tidy, kept us all in clean clothes, but she didn't like housework, and she had a repertoire of about 21 dishes that we had on a 21-day cycle, you know, but it was all good. And if anyone asks you now, any of us on this call, who's the best cook? Oh, me mum.
Exactly, always.
The only woman that could burn pumpkin twice and make you eat it.
You gotta love mom cooking.
People say, is that why you became a chef? I said, no. I remember when I was an apprentice, I remember I cooked for my brother and my father one day, and I was second-year apprentice. I cooked, and we just done beautiful lamb cutlets in school, rosé, you know, the French way, you know, nice and pink. My brother's a mining engineer, works underground. My father's a motor mechanic. So up comes Andy with his beautiful rosé lamb chops. Well, shot down in flames at the dinner table.
Wow.
What the hell is this crap? It's raw.
It's crazy.
But that's half the fun, right? So then I went and cremated them and said, yeah, that's better. Now they're cooked. Yeah.
Exactly.
But then, you know, the path was, once I was on the path, I was on the path. I didn't say, no, this is not for me. I could see, and then going, you know, looking back 40 years, should have I focused and concentrated more? Maybe. But if I did that, would I be sitting here today, the person I am? Who knows? It's just the way I went. But when I really got into the hotel business, that was where it started to change. And then when I was in the hotel business 30 years later, I'd look back at the restaurant business I started in, and I was lucky because I saw what the restaurant business could do to people, success or failure. And also in a small restaurant, you learn everything. The stove breaks down, you're the apprentice, you fix it. Yeah. You clean the toilets, you vacuum the floor. The boss goes on holidays, you better learn cashiering and take care of the money and be responsible. Yeah. But then, and so looking back at that, that was a great learning, because when you go into the hotel, it's very structured. You know, we've got the party system. You work in the garde-manger, you're on the saucier. Now we're all aspiring to be the saucier. So you come in early. My first job in a hotel was entremetier. I mean, my God. I mean, veg chef and soup. I mean, honestly, chef, really? Really? Yes. And then I had to learn how to peel potatoes. So every second day we had potato and leek soup, because I couldn't turn a potato for the life of me. But after about a month, I was an expert in turning potatoes. But once you're on the path, you're on the path. And I think that's what, you know, as I worked with more and more people from around the world, I said, this is cool. You know, this is, wow, they go there, they go here. And then, you know, reflecting back, you know, I looked up to people that had come into Australia to work, but I also looked at the young Australian guys I was working that had worked in the Dorchester in London, or had gone overseas and worked in Europe. I said, oh, wow, that's interesting. And then that's what I found myself doing. So I think, you know, getting on the path, you know, television didn't inspire me to become a cook. Yeah. But I think when I just entered into it and started doing it, it felt right. And then I just stayed there. And I've never got to any point in my life where I said, oh, I got to stop this and go and do something else. You know, people say now, you know, oh, I've had a vision that I want to be a financial banker, or normally it's financial bankers who want to be a cook, right? But I've never come to that stage where I've wanted to change from being a cook. My career path took me out of the kitchens, but I'm still in the hospitality industry.
Exactly.
I still work with young chefs. I still help and hopefully guide and promote and support the young people in the industry, but not only the back, but also the front of house. And that's another thing, you know, you see some chefs that will never come out of the kitchen and they don't want to. And I don't blame them. It's all good. You know, there's no right or wrong. One of my best mates, he said, I could never do what you do. It's too much rubbish involved. Yeah. He said, you have to, you know, in the kitchen, what do we worry about? Good food, kitchen, good food, kitchen. That's all we have to worry about. Yeah. Only have to worry about one thing. You go out of the kitchen a little bit different, yeah? And it's not for everyone. But once you've decided where you're going to be, then off you go and you grab every opportunity. That's the main thing as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And I like how you said
Path? I don't know, whatever path takes you to become a cook, go for it, you know?
Exactly. And like you said, you have to start from humble beginnings, peeling the potatoes,
Yeah.
you know? And that's how I think you develop a true appreciation for what you do. When you
And
start
it's
off,
important to start sometimes it's important to start at the bottom so
it is.
how
Yeah,
long it takes to top and tail 20 kilos of beans
exactly. Yeah,
and peel garlic. Now you don't have to peel garlic.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's already, there's
It's
so
already
much
in that jug, it's already
automation in that. So, but when you work with the ingredients, when you work with food, that's when you learn innovation. That's when you learn creativity. That's when you taste. That's when you can start to marry up your things. You think of the guy who invented mayonnaise. What a brain. How did he think of that?
exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, just think about that. Why would he separate egg yolks, and then mix them with vinegar and oil? And where was his brain? I mean,
Yeah, it's
but what
science.
else? No one else will ever invent mayonnaise except that bloke, whoever he was. Yeah, like the bloke who invented cheese on the back of his horse.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's interesting.
It is. It is. Yeah. Food is truly science, and it's an
Yeah.
experiment, it's an art, and that's what we do as as chefs,
Getting on the path, yeah, you get on the path. Once you're on the path, hopefully you can stay the course as well. But
Exactly. Most chefs,
yeah,
it's in us. It's in that's just our nature. That's what
yeah,
we want to do. And once it's in you, it'll stay in you.
and you
And
have to want to serve people.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're in the service industry. We're
Mhm.
hospitable people, not hostile. We're hospitable. Yeah,
Hospitable. That's key.
and it's different. You have to want to serve. You have to want to create dishes that create memories, and creating memories is so important in business. That's what you want people, whether you run a hotel, a restaurant, a food truck, or you're working in. If you just imagine if you're a chef and you're working in a jail.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you just slopping it out, or are you actually putting in some passion into what you're serving those guys in jail? Yeah. And
Yeah.
and you see in some of the TV shows and that sort of stuff that you watch, you see this, what they really try, and they teach them to be cooks, in the army.
Because if
Some
you
of the army guys have got the best culinary kitchens and the best creative minds because they've got to keep the army strong.
exactly, yeah,
Yes.
with weak
Yeah.
food, you're gonna have a weak army, and that's
Yeah.
what it boils. If your people aren't happy with what they're eating, they're not gonna be happy
Yeah.
at work.
So much to think about. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a lot that kind of goes into it. And that kind of is going to lead us to our next question too. We have about 7 minutes left, but I guess, as a chef, you have a lot of accomplishments, a lot of things that make you satisfied, a lot of rewarding things, a part of the job. And then you also have some challenges. I guess we'll kind of combine the questions. What are some of the most complicated things you have to deal with as a chef, or what are some challenges you face? And then what are the most rewarding things that you could accomplish as a chef?
The biggest challenge is to understand yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And what you have to change about yourself to make sure the people do what you want. I was very lucky to work with some guys out here, and one guy took me for a walk one day. I was the chef and he was my chef de partie, and he took me in front of all the staff on a walk. I said, oh my God, he's going to be gone. And he had a word with me out at the end of the rocks and said, we love you, chef, but if you don't stop shouting, enough.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who do I have to point the finger at? I have to point the finger at him and say, thank you for telling me, but I have to look at the three fingers pointing back and say, now you better have a think about yourself.
Exactly.
And when you've done that, then you're done. After that conversation, I went inside my office and shut the door and felt pretty miserable about myself. But that's self-realization. That's what Chef Lamb was getting to. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then when you realize that, that's the biggest challenge. Yeah. Once you cross that, done. Your people will walk through fire for you if you're there for them.
Exactly.
I can send boys into the desert here, 50-degree heat in August, sandstorm, no problem. Because they know that they'll have food, water. They know they'll be in an air-conditioned bus. and they know that I'll provide for them the best I can, but they also understand that that's part of our business out here, that sometimes we have to go into the desert in August, it's 56 degrees and there's a sandstorm. Boys, where are you? We're here, boss. What are you doing? We're under the tablecloth, out of the sandstorm. Good boys.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the challenge. What is the great thing is when your boys tell you that they're under a tablecloth out of the sandstorm. Yeah? Or one of your apprentices or one of your young guys calls you after 30 years and says, "Thank you. I'm the executive chef now at the Washington Hilton because of you." And you sort of go, "Oof," and it gives you a tingle, right?
Exactly.
And then you pat yourself on the back.
Yeah.
And then you think back to the man who took you to the rocks to tell you to stop shouting, and the end result of that is that young cook that you trained held his hand, pointed him on the right path, and he's still on the path, and he's out of his home country, trained out of his home country, and living abroad, but as an executive chef.
Exactly.
What more do you want, guys? You know, what more do you want is to see your people just become better than you.
Yeah, that's why we do it. You know, that's why we do it.
If you can do that with every single person, not every single person is going to listen to you, right? But if you've got someone that you see in them that they've got it, you've got to take them by the hand. You've got to take them under the wing. If the people don't want you to, or they just don't want it, then it's fine. But give them the opportunity. But the ones that do, give everything.
Exactly.
Give everything. And for me, it's when I was telling Chef Lamb, you know, when we do competitions here, and the certificate we give these kids, and they go to the Canadian immigration lawyer and say, "I've got this certificate from the Emirates Culinary Guild signed by Andy." They ring us, the lawyer, and says, "Is this true?" And we say, "Yes." He said, "Very good. We'll give him a visa," because that's helped his career. Who does it help? It doesn't help him alone. It helps his mum, his dad, his sisters, his brothers. It helps their extended family. And that's in our part of the world, the people I work with in our culinary guild, this is why we do what we do. And when people say, "Oh, you don't get anything out of doing that. Do they pay you?" I said, "No." You should see the smile on their face, though, when you give them a gold medal.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And of course, when an event goes well, or when a dish goes well, or someone walks into your kitchen and say, "Who cooked this? This is fantastic." Yeah.
It fills you up inside. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, if you're cooking on the stove and someone says, "This is the best dish I've ever tasted," and it's a simple pasta, it's a simple soup or whatever.
Exactly. That's passion. That's love.
That's it. You're done, And then the bigger picture is what you're doing for the rest of the people, but you got to listen. Hardest thing is know yourself.
Know
And
yourself.
if you can be honest with yourself, then you can be honest with everybody. And doing the hard and having the hard conversations are really hard sometimes, because we know we don't train for that. Is there a course in the CIA called Asking the Hard Question?
No, there needs to be a
managing the man or woman. Yeah, no, there's not, because we cook. Food science.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
But then sometimes how to listen to ourselves and then reflect. Yeah, self-reflection.
Super important. It's super important. A lot
embarrassing as well, huh? Embarrassing. Can you imagine when a guy that you're meant to, that looks up to you as a chef, takes you by the hand, and he's from another country and you're from another country, and he gives it to you nicely, as our boys say out here, in front of all the staff, and all the staff are watching, huh?
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
The end of the rocks, at the end of the pier.
At the end of the pier, it's tough, but it needs to happen. It's something
tough love,
to wake you up, and that's a part of it.
And then if you don't wake up, you wake up. You wake up. If you don't wake up,
then
then you've got a mental health problem.
Exactly.
And that's when it starts to go downhill.
Exactly. You're exactly right. Thank you so much, Chef, for that. We have about less than a minute left before the call ends. So thank you again for being here. And a lot of great information has been said. A lot of great stories have been told. And I know this call is going to impact